The music we're hearing is by my good friend Tom. Tom, like me, is an aspiring media composer and sound designer. He specialises in horror and suspense and has a good bit of audio drama experience already. We met almost exactly 6 months ago, and since then we've become loyal friends. We have the right things in common. Music, obviously, and our politics, and our sense of humour. You're going to hear us in conversation together. I wanted to find out what it's like to be him, and how he arrived at the point where he is today. He particularly wanted to talk about his various disabilities and health conditions, and how they affect his music and his living. I began by asking him to list them.
The Asperger's syndrome, dyspraxia, tinnitus, scoliosis, obsessive compulsive disorder.
Is that all?
I think so. That's the relevant one.
So here are some definitions of all of that. Asperger's syndrome, according to the National Autistic Society of the UK, is a lifelong developmental disability that affects how people perceive the world and interact with others. People with Asperger's syndrome see, hear and feel the world differently to other people. Some people with Asperger's syndrome say that the world feels overwhelming, and this can cause them considerable anxiety. However, often people feel that Asperger's syndrome is a fundamental aspect of their identity as well. The Dyspraxia Foundation say that dyspraxia is a developmental coordination disorder. It affects fine and gross motor coordination and possibly speech, and can affect participation and functioning in everyday life. According to the British Tinnitus Association, tinnitus is when you perceive sound that isn't there externally, and it is generated by the auditory system itself. The National Health Service say that scoliosis is where the spine twists and curves to the side. It doesn't normally improve without treatment, and it can cause back pain, which it does in Tom. The mental health charity, Mind, says that obsessive compulsive disorder is an anxiety disorder. Obsessions are unwelcome thoughts, images, urges, worries or doubts that repeatedly appear in your mind. And compulsions are repetitive activities that you do to reduce the anxiety caused by the obsession. Asperger's syndrome first.
I'm not as comfortable socially, like working with other people musically.
Yeah.
No, that's because everyone, I don't know, I think a lot of people were sort of was much more spontaneous than me. I think I need that planning. I need to know what I'm doing before I started, if that makes sense.
Like you need to sort of map it in your head before you can go and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There needs to be a direction, not all over the place. Some of the people, ones that are spontaneous, they're sort of comfortable with it and can just sort of jump straight in without any preparation. I've always found that a bit sort of strange. I think I'm afraid to speak my opinions within a group because I think part of me fears that if I did, I'd probably want to control the whole thing and dictate the whole thing, so it's sort of don't say anything at all or dictate the whole thing, and either one's not fair.
When he said that, Tom made me think of a songwriter that I really, really like, David Byrne. I read that David Byrne had unofficially diagnosed himself with Asperger's syndrome in middle age. And I'd also heard stories about how obsessively driven he was by a certain vision of how a performance should go. And it occurred to me that Tom was talking about something quite similar, I think. But because Tom's a nice person, he just held himself back a bit. I asked Tom how our neurotypical world looks from the outside.
Scary.
Scary?
No.
You often say loud as well.
Most people are loud. And they require to be entertained constantly. It's like they have unlimited energy, it's not fair.
So how do you feel when you're sort of you're in company and everyone else is still going strong, chatting away, kind of obviously feeding off each other's energy.
I become emotionally and physically drained, and it's sort of, I think, all right, now I'm on that time limit, I'm not going to last much longer. And then I'll usually take a few days to sort of recover from that feeling.
That's quite a big adjustment you have to make, isn't it? When you are the one that's having to adjust all the time for the rest of the world's preferences for interaction, the responsibility is constantly with you.
Well, in some ways then I can understand that, because not everyone's going to know every single condition in the world or know how to deal with it. But on the other hand, if people do, I think people should make an effort to at least appreciate that difference, but most people don't. Most people forget and it goes over their heads, or they just don't care.
Oh, and you've told me stories before about people who almost sounds like they don't believe you.
You get that sometimes. You tell people about life experiences and they just, you could, even if they don't say it, you've got the feeling they're thinking, oh yeah, oh yeah. Sometimes when I tell people if I'm really drained or I've not got enough energy, they just assume it's just laziness. People just think, oh yeah, pull in a fast one, you don't want to do such and such. And it's like, well, it's not as easy as that for me, because what might be easy for you is not easy for someone else.
I think people are quite bad at remembering that actually the only person they know what it's like to be is themselves. Yeah.
It's very sad, isn't it?
It is a bit, yeah. Because I think it would be sort of richer in a way if people tried to use their imagination a bit more.
But I think people are just getting meaner in general, aren't they? People are becoming less interested in other people. I think that's just a thing we're doing as a society, I think. People take pictures of their food, don't they? They should take the picture of it after it comes out the other end if it's that interesting, don't they?
Look what I did to this food.
People want short, sharp, small things that amuse them for a small second.
You don't do that, do you, so much?
No.
I asked Tom how the other things that he mentioned, dyspraxia, scoliosis, tinnitus and OCD, affect his life.
The tinnitus and sensitive hearing mean that I can't use headphones to listen to anything, and I can't listen to stuff at loud volumes or for prolonged periods.
What happens if you do?
It gets worse. The sensitive hearing, I would say, is a bit more copable, but the sensitive hearing does affect the tinnitus as well. Without the tinnitus is probably the worst one because it's very annoying. Sometimes it's random and sometimes it's affected by my back and posture and things. But the sensitive hearing can sometimes wail in sometimes at random, and it affects your whole judgment on working on something. Does it actually physically hurt? The sensitive hearing does, yeah. Certain voices can do it. Because some people just presume it's about volume, but it's not about that. It's about sometimes frequency, how close I am to the sound, what sort of room am I in.
So what can you hear right now if we just shut up for a minute?
High-pitched squealing in both ears.
So is that there most of the time?
No, but it goes up and down. I can pick up on the fish tank in the room. Sometimes I can hear the cars go past even from the main road. Earlier annoying kids outside, screeching kids.
But obviously as a child you kind of didn't have that awareness what it is that you're trying to manage and take responsibility for and deal with. So when you first started going to school, you know, you would already have been dealing with some of this stuff, whereas the other children weren't.
Apparently I used to run around growling at people.
Oh yeah.
But I was always beaten up and abused at the schools from an early age.
Right from the beginning.
Yeah. Even in the first year, there would be kids that would set me up and get me into trouble, and the teachers would never believe me. One of them smacked one of my teeth out and stuff. Some of them don't realise they're being the way they are, because if they're just brought up around that, they're going to assume that's the norm. But I think some people are just naturally horrible from a young age. They learn how to be nasty and they do it to whoever they want. Makes them feel better, doesn't it? So some of them were sort of completely oblivious to me.
Yeah.
But others, sort of, they target you, don't they? Once it starts, they find someone.
Yeah.
They've got their victim for the next couple of years, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is that what it felt like? They were almost looking for someone to target?
I think, yeah, they deliberately look for the weakest person.
I mean, did you ever enjoy school?
Not really, no. It was always a sort of a battle. There'd be loads of boring lessons of endless cover teachers that didn't know what they were doing. I think one year I had about 7 different cover teachers within the space of a few months, and they just, because they never spoke to each other, you'd be doing the same thing over and over again. And because I was labelled, I was always stuck in the bottom sets of all the naughty ones.
This is the thing about this distinction between, when you've got special educational needs, because your brain's wired differently, it's not the same thing as having low ability.
No. There seemed to be certain students that were always praised and sort of pushed forward, but the others were just sort of, we were left to it, I think. And there were some points where I was getting higher grades than some of the people in the middle, the higher sets, but nothing was changed or moved. And even some of the school reports that I got, some of them, they didn't sound like they was describing me at all. It sounded like they were describing other people. Like one woman left a report saying, "Oh, Tom never hands in homework," and I was literally the only person that did in that class.
Did that make you feel as a child like no one was actually even seeing you or noticing you? Because that's what it sort of sounds like.
But I think some of it was just general laziness from the teachers. Some of them couldn't be bothered. And there were some that were a lot better than others, but a few teachers being okay doesn't outweigh the other ones when all the bullying's going on, so it's just getting through each day by day, really.
Sounds really miserable. Tom is nodding here. Did the teachers ever pay attention to the bullying?
Sometimes, but some of them were afraid of them.
The teachers were afraid of the children?
Oh yeah. Some of them were, you could tell they were afraid. Or some of the students were bigger than the teachers. I think maybe that.
Are we at secondary school now, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, an aggressive teenager, I suppose, can be quite a daunting thing, can't it?
Yeah, because if they don't listen to authority, there's no warning that they could lash out and beat the hell out of the teacher. What's the teacher going to do? Some of the classes, the kids climbing the walls and stuff.
Literally climbing the walls?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were you doing all this time while the children were
sort of sitting there pretending I don't exist? Yeah.
You did a lot of pretending you didn't exist.
Yeah. No, some of the lessons, even the ones that lasted an hour, I sort of clock watch every second. Hurry up and finish.
Did you learn much?
No. No.
But you know quite a lot now, so when did you start learning?
I don't know, I think I've always watched a lot of television, so I've probably learnt a lot from that.
Our conversation turned to how low his self-esteem had been in his early teens, and I asked him if he felt more confident these days now that he's an adult.
I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm confident, other times I feel like I'm not confident at all. Like 1 second you can feel in a good mood and the next minute you can feel completely awful for no reason whatsoever. Do
you think there was an effect of being an unhappy child and teenager, which has kind of lasted beyond that time?
I think, if you're unhappy at any point in your life, it's not going to go away, is it? It's going to stay with part of who you are, isn't it? Less trusting of people, but maybe that's a good and bad thing. You could push people away that could be good, but on the other hand, this probably protects you from damage from bad people.
So you've got good defences?
With some people are quite good at getting themselves in even if they are bad, I think. So what comes naturally to others doesn't to me.
There's one time we went into McDonald's together and we'd ordered our food and you said, "Oh, you go and collect it."
Yeah, it's just easier if someone else does it, isn't
it? You're just making me do all the work.
I just collecting it, even if it's for a second, you've made contact with someone, haven't you?
Yeah, quite enjoy that normally. Because normally people in customer services roles are supposed to be nice to you, so they...
Supposed to be.
Yeah, it doesn't always work out that way. And so I normally have a pleasant little interaction when I do that, and that's quite nice. That lifts me a little bit.
Yeah, creepy.
Yeah. Tom is good at what he does, and in the main it's self-direction that's got him to this point. And I think his work is mostly more interesting than some of our peer group who could afford to buy all the audio kit they could possibly want. I often find myself thinking this, that if the strength of character that it takes to remain gentle and curious in what could feel like a really hostile world were as clearly visible to everybody in society as success, wealth or boldness, then people like Tom would be celebrated.